I got an email, Brian, from one of the listeners. Would you like to hear more about Ranger Ross?
Oh, okay. We just talked about him. Where did we talk about him?
We talked about him.
With Greg Oliver.
Yes. But this came in just a couple of days ago because it's from Nicholas. And I'm not sure. Nicholas doesn't say what part of the world he's from. So no, wait a minute. He drove. This was years ago. He drove from High Point, but he was in college. So we don't know where this motherfucker is now, Nicholas. He's somewhere, but he's hiding. Possibly because he's got this story to tell about Ranger Ross. Jim and Brian, recently on an episode of JCE, you mentioned a name I've been searching for years. Around 2005 or 2006, I just finished my first year in college and was trying to beef up my acting resume. I had gotten in touch with a film creator in Georgia from a casting website, and I drove from High Point, North Carolina, to some small town outside of Atlanta. I met the film producer director at his house, read a monologue for him. Everything went well. We started to discuss his next film that he was casting for. And he asked me to come back for a table reading in a few months. So I went back to Georgia and met with him. I was the first to arrive, and he informed me that the wrestler formerly known as Glacier was also cast in the film. And growing up as a wrestling fan, I was very excited. The filmmaker claimed to know Sid Vicious, Jim Cornette, the Midnight Express, etc. I'm trying to remember the filmmaker from Georgia that I'm good friends with and can't remember for the life of me.
The famed film producer Sammy Kent, I believe.
That could good old Uncle Sammy. But anyway, Nicholas continues, when Ray Lloyd showed up, he was accompanied by a tall guy with a very thin mustache. When he introduced himself, he called himself Ranger. He told me that he wrestled for WCW and was a four horseman.
What?
That's when I questioned him because he was African American. And though I was born in the mid 80s, I knew there was never an African American horseman. And I thought, let alone a wrestler named Ranger. He said he replaced Tully. And I stood there in awe of what he was saying. That day, he went on to make some insane comments about the wrestling business that I ignored. And when I went home that night, I looked him up to see if I was wrong about the horseman. And I found out that no, he was never a horseman. I found out he had lit a jail on fire and he may have a warrant out for his arrest. I never went back to the callback for that film and never heard the name Ranger Ross again. Ranger Ross again until today, and it made me recall this story. Ranger Ross, we talked about it. He was in the service. He was a paratrooper or parachuter or whatever. As Bob Eaton said one time, they dropped him out of a helicopter into Grenada. But then after his wrestling days, this email kind of jogged my memory about, didn't he get in some kind of trouble? Legal trouble, police trouble, or something after?
Yeah, I believe he got into a lot of trouble. I believe he went to prison, and I'm actually looking it up right now.
Now you may be thinking about old Hardbody Harrison there, who went to prison for a long, long time because he had a harem of women that he had coerced into prostitution.
No, I think I'm thinking about this guy. He went to prison too, I think.
Did Ranger Ross go to prison?
Hold on. Ex-officer charged in bank heist. Police call suspect motorcycle bandit. On February 10th, 1996, Ranger Ross turned himself into the FBI. He was the notorious motorcycle bandit.
Yeah.
Having committed a few robberies in and around Ackworth, Georgia, including banks and a grocery store, and then racing away on his motorcycle. Let me see if it says how many years he spent away.
Ackworth, Georgia, by the way, was the hometown of Mike Gibson, who was the original president of the Bob Armstrong fan club and is right outside of, I think it's still in Cobb County because it was not far from where Big Bubba Rogers lived, but it's suburban Atlanta, Ackworth.
Well, I'm looking this up because, and it doesn't have the exact amount of years, but he went away for at least several years, it appears. But when he said that he lit a police station on fire, that was so close to Bruiser Bedlam's story that I was like, is there more than one wrestler that tried to light a police station on fire or blow it up?
Well, but maybe it's just the alliteration. Bruiser Bedlam, Ranger Ross, maybe he got the crime mixed up. He thought Bruiser was the motorcycle bandit and thought Ranger blew up the police station.
So let me ask you this, because you were there. At the end of Dusty's run, after Dusty was replaced and Crockett Jr. booked for a little while, and then George Scott, do you think when they had Hiro Matsuda with Flair, instead of Kendall, do you think Ranger Ross would have been a good fit in there with Barry Windham and Ric Flair and Hiro Matsuda and Ranger Ross?
Ooh, I'm not sure. I think what was it? The Sumitomo. Am I getting the Die Hard terrorist or company mixed up? What was Matsuda? It wasn't the Sumitomo.
The Yamazaki Corporation.
Yamazaki. Sumitomo was the Bruce Willis movie.
No, right? That's not even that. That's what's the name of that? That's the plaza.
Sukiyaki?
You're just making words and putting
Sukiyaki was a #1 hit back in, I believe, 1963. It was, remember? It's a very beautiful song, and it was Japanese, in Japanese lyrics. And the only allegedly Japanese song that the record company knew, or Japanese word that the record company knew back in the early 60s was Sukiyaki. So they put it out under that title and it went gold.
I'm getting really excited about what could have been. Can you imagine 89 Flair if it turns out after all these years, it was all an act? He doesn't have any money. He's been robbing banks with Ranger Ross. It would have been the greatest thing for his gimmick.
But what about, can you see if because Ranger Ross replaced Tully, well, if Ranger Ross and Arn Anderson had been the Brainbusters with Bobby Heenan, do you think it would have worked?
Well, no, he replaced Tully because Tully left with Arn. So I think timing-wise, that's just completely ridiculous, Jim, if we're going to be honest about it.
Well, no, you know what? You have found the loophole in the story. I would have believed it except for that.
And just to think about the idea, if they had let him join the Horsemen a few months earlier when Tully was there, he could have been a part of the Midnight Horseman feud. Jim Cornette takes the combat kick in Philly.
The combat kick. How do you remember? I didn't even remember that.
When I started watching NWA in 1989, the two wrestlers I saw every single week when I tuned in were the Great Muta and Ranger Ross. And I didn't realize yet that Ranger Ross was a jobber. I thought he was one of the push stars. Like, man, this guy's cool. He can move and he does a kick. Why does he keep losing? And then he just kept losing.
See, he had been wrestling for just a very brief period of time, I believe, on the Indies in Georgia. He might have been a Sammy Kent protege. I can't remember where he broke in, but that was his first ever. He'd never been to a territory. He didn't have a lot of experience. He'd never even worked regularly, but they found out about his military background. And this is when Herd wanted to do the Vince blueprint, and everybody's going to appeal to the kids and everybody. So Ranger Ross, he's going to be the G.I. Joe. And remember, Norman the Lunatic is going to be the kids, the friendly George the Animal Steel type, and the Ding Dongs, and all the other things they did. And Ranger Ross, actually, besides the fact that he was indeed the motorcycle bandit and how many things he may have committed arson on, we have no idea of these things, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, other than the email, I have not seen anything about arson, for the record. I'll keep looking.
Okay, yeah. I mean, just because you can Google him that he would turn himself in as a motorcycle bandit doesn't mean he ever set anything on fire. But he wasn't rotten, but he just was kind of green and not real good. And the gimmick was, it was done so one-dimensionally, that I think a lot of people, the way it was presented, people thought it was bullshit when it was actually true, I think, in some cases, because WCW under Turner and under Herd was starting to do the cartoon shit and the ding-dong gimmicks and the stuff like on Vince's TV, and people were already realizing not to take shit on Vince's TV seriously. So here comes a guy that they really did drop him out of a helicopter into Grenada, and they thought it was just another gimmick. Like, remember Matt Bourne became a lumberjack with a fucking bear?
Big Josh. That's right.
Big Josh.
I have an update here. Ranger Ross, real name Robert Lee Ross Jr., was arrested by the FBI on February 10th, 1996 in the Atlanta area. He had committed bank robberies as the motorcycle bandit. He had been accused of robbing 3 Atlanta area banks over the preceding 3 years. He was also suspected regarding an arson committed at the Ackworth, Georgia Police Department where he'd worked as a probation officer. Apparently, the goal of the fire was to destroy city records in an effort to hide embezzlement on his part.
So he was not only a motorcycle bandit and an arsonist, but an embezzler.
Fuck, if you had brought him in and teamed him with Bruiser Bedlam, it would have been the best real-world tag team ever.
Well, we couldn't have called them the Blonde Bombers.
Just the Bombers.
Just the Bombers.
The Bombers. The Fire Starters.
You know, the problem is, I think the problem becomes, Brian, when you just...
The problem becomes when you think to yourself, you know what the best solution is? I'm just going to burn all this shit down right now. No one will find me.
No. I think the problem becomes when you try to jam a transition to an ad spot in where it doesn't necessarily belong, but we're going to try to do it anyway because it's about that time. And folks, I'll tell you, there's no need to set fire to your pubic hair. There is no need to commit arson in your crotch. There is no need to have one of those brush fires to clear all of the underbrush and the ground clutter away from your most sensitive areas. As a matter of fact, we encourage you not to do that. And if you are going to set fire to your pubic hair, please, folks, practice pubic hair fire setting safely. And don't use gasoline. Stick to like butane lighter fluid, which burns at a little bit lower temperatures, so your weenie may roast a little bit slower, and you might have time to put out some of the good parts. But then that leaves you with wondering what to do about your crotch rot and all the skankiness that goes down. And folks, just because it's the only thing you can see in the mirror when you're standing in front of it, don't forget that your pubic hair goes all the way through the taint valley and into the crevice of your ass, the Hershey Highway entrance known as the canyon there. It's got to go all the way up. So you're having to shave from the back to the front and from the front to the back and meeting in the middle in Taintsville. And to do that, you don't want to set fire to it. You don't want to use a weed whacker. You don't want to use one of those scythes that they use to cut down wheat and things in Russia. You don't want to use any sharp implements. You want to use stuff that's made to operate down there in not only close quarters, but potentially wrinkly conditions. And I'm talking about our friends at manscaped.com and the Performance Package 4.0. You got the Lawnmower 4.0. It's designed to reduce grooming incidents and accidents. That's another thing you don't want to take to your crotch. An axe. It may be sharp, but you don't want to cut things off with that. I've seen a few people that looked like they were hit in between the legs with an axe, and it wasn't a pretty sight. Stick to the Lawnmower 4.0. It shaves hair on loose skin, so it, no matter how low your coin purse hangs to the ground, you can, move around the wrinkles and the shades, and it. I've seen some guys that their coin purse looked like a popped balloon. Other times it looks like they took the balls from one of those old-fashioned pawn shops and just put it in a fucking tube sock. But nevertheless, these ceramic
Where are you seeing these things? Are you hanging out at the county pool?
Well, you see a lot of things over at the county pool. I've always hung out at pools in various places. The county pool, the city pool. I used to hang out in the paralegal pool up at Titan Towers, but thanks to the advanced skin-safe technology, the Lawnmower 4.0, no nicks, and also there's no need for night vision goggles when you're going on this fucking reconnaissance run, folks, because the trimmer has an LED light so you can mow the lawn in the dark. Of course, I'd go back the next day in the light and take a second look at it just to make sure that you did your job correctly, but it's basic landscaping. If you're trimming the hedges, the tree looks taller without increasing its height. So it's a tropical illusion, as they say.
What do you say to the listeners who have gardeners?
For the listeners who have gardeners, you need the gardeners to be equipped with the proper tools. Because see, here's the thing. The greatest surgeon in the world is not going to perform an adequate heart transplant with a ballpoint pen, a paper clip, and some duct tape. They got to have the right tools. See, a poor workman blames his tools, but a great workman with great tools, well, you've got just, that'll be just swell.
He blames the apprentice.
Also, I say again, what?
Well, he blames the apprentice. You say he can't blame the tools. I say he blames the apprentice.
What does Donald Trump's bad television show have to do with this? The second best tool in the performance package is the weed whacker. You stick this up your nose or in your ears, and it will eliminate all the nose pubes and the growth out of your ears that looks like that you've accidentally watered grass seed in your ear cavity. You just take this weed whacker and you stick it up your nose, gets all the ear or all the hair out, stick it in your ears. Just don't stick it too far. You start to see colors. I figured that out one time. I was trying to get all the hairs out of my nose. I stuck it up about 3/4 of the way, and this thing's about 4 or 5 inches long. I stuck it up about 3/4 of the way, and everything was green for 3 days. But you can also add pep in your step with the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant. I mean, you will feel like you're cool and refreshed, like you have encased your testicles in this space-age spray foam insulation. With that Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, not only that, but the Crop Reviver Spray-On Testy Toner to tone your testes. You know, that is actually the plural of testicles is testes, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, there you go. See, I don't make up these words. And if you purchase a Performance Package 4.0, you get 2 free gifts, the Shed Travel Bag to hold all your goodies in and anything else that you might be holding or carrying, and the patented high-performance reduced chafing Manscaped boxers. And this is not a couple of guys that are going to come to your house and punch you repeatedly in the head and face. These are shorts. These are drawers, as Mama Cornette used to say. The undies that you wear underneath your normal everyday street clothing that you wear from the waist down. And they got a bunch of other stuff on the website to help you keep from stinking and not look so repulsive as your female better halves tell you that you do when you allow all this shit to grow and mold. So anyway, right now, manscaped.com, 20% off and free shipping with the code DRIVE, DRIVE, at manscaped.com, 20% off and free shipping from the Amazon to the amazing dong with the ultimate bushwhacking tools from Manscaped. Why, there's Luke and Butch now.
Yeah!